Talk Stroke. I am your host and stroke survivor, Jerry Wald. And for those of you that are new here to this show, I started doing this show to bring awareness to stroke, TBI, aphasia, mental health, and brain injury. And I also wanted to provide a platform for all survivors to share their journeys from all across the world. And also bring on experts in brain health so they can share their knowledge with us as brain injury survivors, because there's a lot to learn. So this morning's guest, my guest is Andy Dovey from Scotland, and he is coming up on about 10 years, but we'll get into that, year stroke survivor. And also, we'll get into that. But also, we're going to talk about Andy's documentary that he's doing. And that's what's all about that. So looking forward to hearing about all that. So please make comments, ask questions. And if you have not done it yet, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And good morning, Yvonne. Look at this. Andy is from Scotland and you are from Athens, Greece. Let's go ahead and get started. So sit back, relax, and we'll have a great time. And again, ask questions and make comments.
Telling me to dance, taking a chance.
All righty. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. And thank you for being here. I appreciate it. And let's go ahead and bring on Andy, the one and only Andy. There he is.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Hello, Jerry.
How are you there, Andy? So good to see you again.
Yeah, not too bad. You too. It's a little bit colder up here in Scotland than it is in Athens in Greece, I fancy. But it's a nice day nonetheless.
Good to hear. Yeah, it's probably about 70 degrees here, and it's cloudy. It's supposed to rain tomorrow again. So thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it. And please ask questions. And Andy, you're coming up on 10 years as a stroke survivor.
Yeah, it'll be end of May.
Wow.
Will be 10 years.
Wow.
Which is a whole nother story in itself.
Right.
But
right.
Yeah, 10 years at the end of May.
Yeah. I remember the 10-year mark. I'm coming on. Well, I just passed 12, but do we say congratulations?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? I see a lot of posts on stroke survivors groups on social media where people say, "Oh, I've just had my 3rd anniversary or 4th anniversary or whatever."
Right.
And people say things like, "Oh, what do you do? Do you celebrate it? Do you not?" And all the rest of it. And I generally post, well, actually, after about 7 years for me, I kind of forgot the date. And for most of the time, it's only a few weeks afterwards I go, "Oh, crikey, it was my 8th anniversary the other week," or whatever. But obviously 10 years is a little bit special. So it's more in the forefront of my mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, I honestly don't know whether it's, to be honest with you, what I celebrate is being alive.
Yes, absolutely.
Quite frankly, because I nearly went, and God, I didn't really looking back on where I was 10 years ago, I didn't think I'd make it this far. So
Right.
For me, it's a bit of a celebration. But then every day is, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. We could, if you don't mind, can we get in just to a little bit of your stroke, and then we'll go into your documentary, because I've been having people, as you know, that reaching out to me about the documentary. So when I posted the promo, a lot of people want to know about that. So should we talk about your stroke a little? We can summarize that.
Yeah, sure. Before my stroke, I was a drummer, professional musician. If I turn the camera around here, you can see.
Yep, there's got to show the drums. Got to show those drums to your left. Are beautiful. I got to get mine out.
They're electronic ones, so it's a bit of a cheat, really.
Yeah.
But because it's all connected to the computer, you can do all kinds of wonderful things, even
Absolutely.
though you can't quite play the way that you used to play. By the time it's come out of the computer, it sounds fantastic. But anyway, that's another story.
Right.
So I was a jobbing musician. I was teaching drums in schools. I was teaching drums in my home studio. I was playing in bands, obviously.
Wow.
And then one morning, I woke up quite early in the morning. It's about 5:30, I think. There was a
Right.
loud bang. That's all I remember, is a very loud bang. And I thought something was happening outside. And I sat up in bed and realized that there was no noise going on outside. And I just slumped back down onto the pillow again,
Wow.
and started to feel unwell. And I thought, I need to get to the bathroom. I think I'm gonna be sick. So I got out of bed, as you do, and I just collapsed onto the floor. I couldn't stand up. The room, the world was just spinning and spinning and spinning.
Right.
Like really bad vertigo if you've come off a roundabout really quickly or whatever.
Absolutely.
And I couldn't, I'd never experienced this before, so I had no idea what was going on at all. And I was thrashing around and flailing around, trying to stand up and crashing into furniture and all the rest of it. So that woke up my wife.
Yes.
And she said, are you okay? And I said, yeah, I'm just feeling a bit weird. I need to get to the bathroom. So I had to crawl on my hands and knees.
Wow.
And my head just felt really heavy. It was like somebody was pushing down on my head.
Wow.
And a magnet was pulling me over to the left. It's really weird.
Interesting.
Anyway, I made it to the bathroom and hauled myself up onto the toilet. And I'm kneeling over the toilet bowl, retching.
Yeah. Thinking, you are, okay.
Yeah. Now, I remember when I was 16, at the time this was happening, I was 55.
Right.
At the age of 16, that's how my father died. I saw my father die. He had a heart attack. And the last image I have of my dad was of him kneeling over a toilet bowl, retching.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm now kneeling over a toilet bowl, retching. And I just thought, this is it. I'm having a heart attack. How ironic. I'm going to die the same way my dad died.
Wow. Interesting.
By this time, my wife has called emergency services, and a paramedic team have turned up. And they say to me, what do you think's happening? So I thought, I'm having a heart attack. So I said, I think I'm having a heart attack. They did an ECG, checked out my heart, and said, no, you're fine. You're not having a heart attack. We think it's labyrinthitis, which is an infection of the inner ear. That's why you've got the balance problem.
Right.
They gave him an anti-nausea shot and went.
What caused it? Do you know?
It was an ischemic cerebellar stroke, and that's literally all I know. Sorry, that's my phone alert going off. Sorry about that. But anyway, about 8 hours later, my doctor did a home visit and did a few tests that the paramedics didn't do, and said, I think you've had a stroke. So he called for another ambulance, and I went to hospital. And I remember getting to hospital, and the next thing I remember is waking up, coming round in a hospital ward, which I didn't know it, but that was actually 5 days later.
So you were in a coma.
And I'd ended up going to intensive care. I had developed hydrocephalus, which is where you have a buildup of fluid in the brain, and it's slowly crushing your brain. So I had to have 6 hours of brain surgery. I still have a hole here and a scar down. They took some skull out the back of my neck.
Right. Can I just ask one thing? There is from Joy here is asking a question. Was the bang you heard actually in your head?
Well, I think it must have been. It's a good question. I think it must have been the stroke, the block,
right,
the clot. I assume that's what it was.
Sure.
But
okay.
that woke me up, and maybe the act of it waking me up made me think it was a bang. I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
Honestly don't know.
Interesting.
So I came round in hospital. It was 5 days later, and I'd had 6 hours of brain surgery and had bits of skull removed and had a drain put in my skull and all the rest of it.
Interesting. Wow.
Those were the days.
Yeah, exactly. The good old days. I hate to say that. Yeah. Wow. Interesting. So I know I just asked it, but do you think that was there a cause? I mean, because
well, that's an interesting question. I now, with the benefit of hindsight,
Yes.
look back at my life that I was leading, and everything was 100 miles an hour,
Yeah.
as many people's lives are these
Yeah.
days.
Absolutely.
And I now post-stroke have very bad anxiety, which the psychotherapy people that I've seen have said basically I buried that.
Wow. Do you take meds for that?
I do now. I'm on meds
Yeah.
for anti-anxiety meds. Yeah.
Right. Right.
And the neuropsychologist that I saw felt that, you know, with witnessing my dad's death, age 16,
Yeah.
and that was never then afterwards, never talked about in the family at all with my brother or my sister or my mother, never mentioned at all. Life just carried on as normal.
Right.
The psychotherapist thought, what I've done is I've buried emotions.
Yeah.
And so I've carried on throughout my adult life, actually underneath an anxious person, but not really, but burying it and suppressing it. And
Yeah.
so any events in my life, like I got divorced, you know, various all life events just got suppressed. And that what happens is then is that just builds up stress in your body.
Yeah. So that
And
may have,
ultimately something goes bang. It
yeah,
might be a clot in your brain, it might be a clot in your heart as a heart attack, or it might be a nervous breakdown. It could be anything, you know.
absolutely. Especially when you had yours, you're like retching in the leaning over the toilet, and that's what your dad, you saw him pass away the same way, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is, like you said, this is it.
Yeah, yeah, because he was 54 at the time it happened. I was then 55 when it was happening to me. So I kind of thought, oh well, this must be what it is, you know.
Right. Absolutely. Wow. So coming up 10 years, and
Yeah,
do you still have that anxiety? I just wonder
I
with everybody else. Same with me.
yeah, it's always there, and it's
Suppressed.
really weird. If I have an appointment coming up, like a medical appointment or something, we get a letter through the post that's semi-official, you know, a bank statement or something like that.
Yeah.
I see the postmark and I recognize the font, and it's like, oh God, it's a letter from the bank. Oh my God, what is it? What is it? What is it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a letter from the council. Oh my God, what's this? What's this? What's this? And that's really hard to control. It's kind of like
Yeah.
you're on hyper alert status, DEFCON 5 the whole time, you
Yeah.
know. So
That's amazing.
relaxing and switching off is I find quite hard to do.
Yeah. I
But
feel the same.
prior to my stroke, people would say, oh God, you're so relaxed, you're so easy, but it was all below the surface.
That's something I bet if we ask everybody out there, I don't know if you could see it since you're on a phone, the comments are on your one side or
My eyes aren't that good, Jerry. You're talking about a nearly 65-year-old man's eyesight. So no, I can't
I,
really see.
I know I got my readers, so but
That's
yeah,
cheating.
yeah, you have to. But it, yeah, Bryce here saying, nice to see you, Bryce. So hard to let go of daily responsibilities, and I think the same way. I feel it inside. If there's some kind of something going on, or if someone knocks on the door, or who knows, I get that tense feeling. A lot of things we don't say out there, but I bet everybody
Yeah.
else, if we ask them out there, I'd love to know if everybody else feels the same way. And I'm sure,
And I think too, we get used to the way life is. We get used to sounds, we get used to noises, we get used to behaviours, and it becomes our norm. And one of the reasons I'm now in Scotland talking to you, as opposed to where I had the stroke, which was in Oxford in the south of England,
okay, yeah,
it is for that reason. I found that I couldn't cope with the
okay,
noise and the activity and just the simple task of going out somewhere, and noise in a restaurant or a cafe and doors banging and
yeah,
cars revving up and all the rest of it. I really couldn't cope. So my mother was Scottish, and I've got relatives in Scotland. I've always loved Scotland. So my wife and I said, right, this is about the rest of our lives together, however long that is, and it has to be about us. So we took the decision to move to rural Scotland, where
yeah.
it's very peaceful, very quiet,
Oh,
small town of about 6,000 people. And for me, it's been a real life changer. It's really helped my mental health.
Wow. Good to hear that, because I know those, if I hear a bang, a car backfiring or something, or if someone in the music, you feel like if someone in the car, who knows, maybe you're, oh, congratulations, if everybody hasn't known, you have a new granddaughter.
Yeah, it's
And that's awesome. But those loud noises or too many people having conversations and you can't concentrate on one. Do you feel like that?
oh, completely,
Okay.
completely. I would think probably for my first year, I couldn't listen to music. Now, as a musician, that was tough.
Yeah.
I eventually worked out, hey, I'm in hospital. I'm not going anywhere. I could listen to as much music as I like. I can catch up on all the things that I've bought, but I have never had the time to listen to, because obviously when you're a working musician, you're getting music all the time. So
Right.
the last thing you really want to do in the evening is listen to more music, right? So I said to my wife, please bring in my iPod. iPod, that makes me sound old, doesn't it? iPod. Please bring in my iPod and some headphones. So she did, and I thought, this is fantastic. And I got my iPod, and I forget what it was I called up, and I played it for about 5 seconds. It was like, oh no, I can't cope with that. And I ended up going from sort of, Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple, down the scale through Pink Floyd, all the way down to Mozart string quartets, which I thought, surely Mozart string quartets, that'll be fine.
Yeah.
Couldn't listen to any of it. Couldn't
Is that
listen to any
right?
of it. All of it made my brain melt.
Yeah.
So for about a year, I couldn't listen to music, and then I could gradually listen to a bit more and a bit more. Now I can listen to anything that takes my fancy, but for no more than probably half an hour before, again, my brain just,
Yeah.
I think it's called overstimulation.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's where prior to our strokes and our brains were functioning normally, we could have sounds, noises, sights, and we could filter stuff out. You know, that classic thing, you're at a party, you're chatting away, and all of a sudden you hear your name mentioned.
Yes. And then you lose.
Well, and then yeah, right, yeah. Well, what happens is the brain's been filtering out all that unimportant stuff, but our name is quite important. So hear that. Post stroke, many of us lose those filters,
Yes.
and so we hear and see everything. So bright lights can be a problem.
Oh yeah.
Noisy environment can be a problem. It's just overwhelming. It's,
Yeah.
it's
Absolutely.
like it's like everything's coming in, and you can't block anything out.
Right. But it certainly
But
looks
the good
like.
news is it gets better.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, what would you tell somebody, that is going through it and they're thinking the same way you were in the beginning? It does get better,
Well,
right?
it does, but one of the things I've learned in the last nearly 10 years is that stuff takes a long time.
Yes.
Improvements after stroke, whether they're physical ones or whether they're emotional ones or whether they're mental ones, take a long time. It's not, I remember sitting up in hospital with tubes coming out of everywhere, IVs, all the rest of it.
Absolutely.
And a physiotherapist visiting me and saying, you need to look at your recovery in 6-week chunks.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And in my head, I'm going, 6-week chunks, plural. Mate, I'll be out of here in 6 weeks. I've got a gig coming up, and I need to do this, and I've got emails to do, and I've got, because I thought I've been off work with a bad back for 2 weeks. That's about the illest I've been, right?
Right.
So yes, okay, I've had brain surgery, and whatever this stroke thing is, that's going to be longer than 2 weeks, maybe a month, maybe
How long?
six weeks. Yeah, just a bit. So I had no idea. And if anything, I think the physiotherapist got it wrong, and he should be saying you should look at your recovery in 6-month chunks.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what I try and do and say, am I improved from how I was 6 months ago? Whether that might be physically, whether that might be emotionally,
Right.
whatever. And I rely on other people, because you know what it's like. You can't really remember back.
Yeah.
But when, for example, my stepdaughter visited in February last year and said, God, you're so much better than the last time I saw you.
Yeah, I hear
Your
that.
your fatigue's much better. You seem to recover from fatigue much better than when I last saw you. We couldn't be
Yeah.
talking now for an hour and having spoken for an hour the previous day, because you'd be wiped out. And it's
Right,
like,
right.
oh, really? I hadn't really noticed, because
Yeah.
day to day you don't notice any change, right?
No, not at all.
So it happens. Change will happen, but it will just happen really slowly. And rather it be like that,
Yeah, we want it to happen like that, but
it'll be like that.
yeah, we do want it to happen like that, but in all reality, it takes time. But
Yeah.
wow. So you're
It took me about 4 years to accept that I had a brain injury.
right, right. Wow.
And
So
the bottom line is, that's what stroke is. It's an injury to your brain, and
right.
your brain controls everything. It controls your speech, your thoughts, your body movements, your breathing, your heart rate, your emotions. It does everything.
Right.
So if you've got an injury to your brain, lots of things can and probably will be affected, and they're going to take time to put right. They may not be put right completely, and you probably won't be like how you were before,
Right.
but you can make improvements. They just take a long bloody time.
Yeah, I do see like I don't know if you know Mike Peters out there in South
I
Wales.
do. Hiya, Mike. How you doing?
Yeah.
I mean, for example, Mike is a classic example. Some of the stuff he cooks, you've seen the
Yes.
pictures, Jerry. You comment on them. Fantastic, but it's taken him a long time to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And he just, I mean, some of the, I mean, read all the comments I can see completely. And Mike Peters says, "Don't panic, I'm here." And uh,
I
yeah,
love Mike's humor. I love your humor, Mike.
yeah, he's got a good one there. Yeah. Um, he, I'm seeing, oh no, I can't see all the one. The tiny steps will be better than none is his
Yeah,
comment.
he's absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I appreciate everybody here making comments, asking questions if you want to know. But I mean, it sounds like you've made such a great point. I mean, about the 6 month, is that about what you're saying? Improvement?
Yeah, it changes over time. I think it's true that you make more progress in the early days than you do latterly, but
Right.
you still make progress latterly, but it slows down even more.
Yes.
And the analogy that I use, Jerry, is that, have you ever sat on a train in a station platform, and the train next to you starts going backwards?
Oh, yeah. Then you feel like you're
Right?
going the other
Yeah,
direction.
yeah, but it's actually your train going forwards,
Yes.
but your train is going forwards so slowly that you don't feel it moving,
Yeah.
and you see the other train going backwards, so you automatically think, oh, they're going backwards. They're not. You're going forwards. It's just that you're going forwards so slowly you don't realize it.
Yeah.
And that's the analogy that I use. So there's a kind of perception thing, and I think that's where some medical professionals get confused when they start talking about, oh, you've plateaued.
Yeah. We don't talk.
Well,
That's a
you
bad
only
word,
exactly. I
right?
believe you only plateau if you stop doing stuff,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Because to the medical professional, you've not made much improvement in, let's say, 3 months, right? So they
Right.
say, aha, you plateaued. But maybe you have made improvements in 3 months that are so small and subtle, they don't notice them.
Yes. Yeah. And that's
So
a
their perception is you've plateaued, but it's not. You're just making very slow progress. It's like looking at a snail and saying he's not moving. It is moving. It's just moving very slowly.
right. Right. It's so true that because I hate when they use that term plateau because I go to therapy and all of a sudden, they think I've reached a point where you can do the rest at home and
Right.
and but I need to keep going. I mean, that's because
Yeah.
because they push you. At least for me, they
Yeah.
push you. Real quick,
Yes.
do you have any issues with like me going outside and I have to, if we're going to the store, I got to plan for it. I got to make sure that there's nothing in the road or, I'm going to trip over it. I can't have people behind me walking because I know they're going to kick
Yeah.
my mistake and I'm going to go down. I don't know if that's something
Yeah.
with, because we see you moving both arms and looking wonderful, but that the mental thing is still there.
Yeah, it is, and it again, it gets better over time. I remember
Yeah.
the first time I went out post-stroke,
Right.
when I was out of my wheelchair, and I've been doing a lot of treadmill work, and I could actually walk short distances. I still had a walking stick. I still have a walking stick,
Right.
but I could walk short distances. And we were still living in Oxford at the time, and we went to the nearest town, which is only a small town.
Sure.
But boy, oh boy, everything was happening so quickly. People were walking across in front of me. They were coming behind, past me. They were coming at me, looking at their mobile phones. It's like, no, I'm here, get out the bloody way, you know.
Yeah.
And crossing the road, even a narrow road, was a nightmare, because
Yeah.
everything's happening so quickly, and trying to take it all in was incredibly difficult. So even now it's better, but I still need to plan. If I'm going to go somewhere, I need to think about, right, okay, what shoes do I need to wear?
Yeah.
Can I get by with my trainers? Do I need my walking shoes?
Absolutely.
What's the terrain going to be like? Is it wet? Is it slippery?
Yeah.
Key thing, which I'm sure many of us can identify with, is where's the toilets?
Yes. I know.
Where's the bathroom? You know, and so stuff has to be planned well in advance,
Yes.
because the other thing then is, if we go somewhere and I don't know any of that, anxiety.
Yes. Oh, that's what. Yeah,
Where,
it kicks in. I know.
where are we going to park the car? How far will I have to walk? Do I need to take the wheelchair? Will there be access? Are there stairs, etc., etc.?
Right. Right. So now that you move on, you're doing a documentary.
Yes.
Wow. What's
Would
that
you
all
like to
about?
know? Well, okay. It's to say I'm doing a documentary is not quite true. A documentary is being done, which I am contributing to.
Yes.
So I saw a post on social media, the guy in the States who's just had his first year anniversary, guy called
Right.
Jason Mansfield. He's a filmmaker, and he didn't know anything about strokes, and he wants to raise awareness of stroke.
Right.
So because he's a filmmaker and he's had a stroke, it kind of makes sense that, yeah, and you know, in order to raise awareness, I could do a documentary, etc., etc. So
Absolutely.
Jason's really the guy who's driving this, and I've just stuck my hand up and said, yeah, I'll help out, mate.
Yeah.
I'll maybe do some music for you if you want some music throughout the documentary. And I'm kind of, because I don't understand the video editing business, and neither do I want to.
Right.
I've been involved in trying to find people who want to take part. Now, Mike Peters has put his hand up and said, yep, I'll take part, because what Jason's idea is to have lots of video clips of people like us, stroke
Right.
survivors, talking about their story, just, you know, maybe 5 minutes. We've
Little
got
snippets of it.
an information sheet put together that gives people ideas. They can use their phone. It doesn't have to be a video camera. They can use their phone. They can use their computer, and just do a very short recording of them talking about their situation. One guy who's put his hand up can't talk. He's got very, very bad aphasia.
Right.
So he's written out what he
Okay.
would like to say, and he's sent through some videos of him doing stuff. He's actually in a nursing home somewhere. I can't forget where. He's English, but he's in a nursing home in the States.
Right. Oh.
So he's actually sent through some video clips of him doing stuff, playing computer games and all the rest of it.
Sure.
And I'm doing the voice. I'm speaking his words over the images that he's sent through. So it can be tailored according to how the individual can do stuff.
Right.
But we're having trouble getting people to contribute. So anyone who's looking at this, and I'm thinking of Mike particularly, who has contributed, thank you very much. And I know it's very difficult. Lots of people have said yes, they will, yes, they will, yes, they will, but have yet to send anything.
Yeah.
But really, if there's anybody who's watching this who has got a few minutes to spare, who could talk to their mobile phone and record themselves, or their PC or a video camera or whatever, and send me the images, I can actually send them beforehand the guide that says these are the sorts of things that you could talk about, just suggestions. Because you stick a camera in front of somebody and say, tell me about your stroke experience, and
Yeah.
what do I say? What,
Yeah.
what you know?
Yeah.
So
We'll
we've got
talk
a
about
fact.
that.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got a fact sheet which can give people guidelines about what to talk, and it doesn't have to be in one take, as it were. It
Sure.
can just be in little sentences, and because they're going to be edited and put together, and all the rest of it.
Right. Very interesting.
But I have it here, a fact sheet,
Okay.
because I'd like to share with everybody just some of the reasons behind why this is really important.
Absolutely.
So what I've got here is taken from the World Stroke Organization. I don't know if you've heard of them,
Yes.
but the World Stroke Organization, their global stroke fact sheet for 2022. Okay. So it says that 1 in 4 people in the world will have a stroke at some time in their life.
Yeah.
1 in 4. One in 4 people in this world at some stage will have a stroke.
Yeah.
That
It
really shocked me. I didn't think it would be that big. I thought it
right.
might be 1 in 20 or 1 in 50 or
Well,
something like
the
that.
United States, in the United States, every oh God, I forgot 30 or 40 seconds. I think it's 40. Someone
Yeah,
has a stroke.
yeah.
Hard to believe.
It's scary, isn't it?
Yes.
So moving on, taking that point, globally, there will be about 12.5 million strokes in the world this year, which is
Right.
about 20 every minute.
It's just
So we've been talking for, can't see the time, about half an hour. So that's been what, 60 times 20? What's that? 1,200 strokes in the time we've been talking.
I know. It's just
It's quite staggering, isn't it?
it is.
And
It is.
what's even more staggering is 53% of those strokes will result in somebody's death.
Right. Right.
So for those of us here who have had strokes and still talking and breathing, we've done pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Now that's globally. Obviously, there are parts of the world with better medical facilities than others, so it's
right.
going to vary a lot from country to country. But we're talking globally here. And this other one really shocked me. CVD. Do you know CVD? What that stands for?
I should know, right?
Cardiovascular disease.
Disease. Yes. Okay.
Now, 80% of strokes occur in people who have a low or moderate risk of cardiovascular disease.
Oh.
Because I always thought, oh, if you've had a stroke, you must have had a high risk of cardiovascular disease. It kind of, the two go together.
Not at all.
No.
Wow.
So then we look at us survivors. Okay, currently in the world, there are over 101 million stroke survivors.
Right.
And that figure has doubled in the last 30 years, which is a mixture of there being more strokes and a mixture of there being better medicine, better diagnosis, etc., etc. But there are 101 million of us around the world, which is, just to put it into context, for you guys in the States, right? That's the same, because I'm a bit of a nerd, so I work these things out.
Well, that's good.
That's
people need to hear it.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's the same as the combined populations of California, Texas, Florida, and Ohio.
Wow. Yeah.
California, Texas, and Florida are the 3 most populous states in the States. Ohio is the 7th.
Right.
But the populations of California, Texas, Florida, and Ohio it come up to about 102 million people. So just imagine that the populations of California, Texas, Florida, and Ohio are totally populated by stroke survivors. That's how many there are in the world, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And for those of us on the other side of the pond, that's the same figure as the combined populations of the UK and Spain.
Wow.
Which comes to about 110 million people. So that just gives you some idea of the scale of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why Jason feels so strongly about making this documentary, because it's very easy to think, oh, it's me and it's in the UK and you guys in this, but we're talking about people all around the planet, from all races, creeds, religions,
Yeah.
all the rest of it. They're just people like you and I.
Right.
And there's a lot of them.
There's no discrimination when it comes to a stroke, or kind of,
Exactly.
exactly. Mike
So
Peters, Mike Peters was asking you to message me, Andy. I'm confused. Well, Mike's confused.
Okay.
Yeah, so he'll do that, and
I will do, because I'm friends with Mike on Facebook, so no problem.
yeah, exactly. Good morning, Bryce Bryn again. He's saying he had a surgery to correct an AFib in 03, had a brain bleed in 08.
Right.
Yeah.
It's quite common. I don't know the stats, but when you read people's stories, it's quite common that somebody can have a stroke during surgery.
Yeah, I've heard it before, and it's funny. Every story is unique. There's, I've been with a lot of different stroke survivors, and I don't think I've heard one that is exactly the same.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, if you just take ischemic strokes,
Right.
So in other words, clots, right?
Yep.
If you have a clot in your leg, that's deep vein thrombosis, right? Which you can have on a long haul flight.
Yes.
If you have a clot that lodges in your lung, that's a pulmonary embolism.
Right.
If you have a clot that lodges in your heart, that's a coronary thrombosis.
Right.
If you have a clot that lodges in your brain, that's a stroke.
Right.
So really, if you think about it, it's just the luck of the draw. For my dad, his clot ended up in his heart, so he died of a heart attack. My clot ended up in my brain, so I had a stroke.
Right.
So it's easy to get hung up on why did I have a stroke? The real question is, if it's an ischemic stroke, why did you have a clot?
Right. That's true. Yeah.
Because it just happened to lodge in your brain. It could have lodged anywhere, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I know one of my contributing factors is the fact that I'm on medication now, but I had very sticky blood. My blood would coagulate really quickly. I always thought this was a badge of honor, right? Because when you're a kid and you fall over and you cut yourself, and you go, it's all right, it'll stop in a minute. Me man, me strong. Right?
Yeah, not at all.
Or you're doing some DIY and you hit your thumb with a hammer and it's like, no, don't worry, darling, it'll stop in a minute. I had no idea. I would go blood donating, and my blood would coagulate in the cannula.
Is that right?
Yeah, and nobody ever said to me, "Oh, you're at risk of stroke or heart attack."
Right.
No nurse. No. I did blood donating for about 20 years off and on. No, nobody ever said that to me.
Right.
And it became a standing joke. I would turn up at blood donating and I'd say, "Haha, you'll need the wide bore needle because the narrow bore needle will coagulate."
Right. Yeah.
And the nurses are always different. They go, no. And they use the narrow bore, the standard needle, and they go pump away. But it stopped. I said, yeah, you'll need to use the wide bore needle. Nobody ever said you're at risk of whatever,
Right. Yeah.
But now I'm on Plavix, it's called in the States. It's called clopidogrel here in the UK. Now I dread cutting myself because I just bleed.
Yeah.
And we've got a box full of Band-Aids because I never used Band-Aids before. I just hold the cut together and wait 2 minutes and then that'd be fine.
Yeah.
Now I need to Band-Aid in order to stop myself bleeding.
Yeah, it's crazy what we're not told. All the head injuries I've had, and, wrestling, all the stuff I did when I was younger. I didn't even know. I was 49 when I had my stroke. I didn't know really what a stroke was. I just thought it was an older person's deal. Now I'm 60, almost 62, and wow, it's just now that's why we do this, is to spread, like you're doing, spreading awareness, and trying to let people know out there. And people still don't know, a stroke. Oh, you don't look like you had a stroke. Well, I don't know what I'm supposed to look like, or
well, precisely. I think the common misconception is, and there's been a few TV programs in the UK over the last couple of years, a couple of soaps that have had people who have had strokes, And of course, normally they'll have a stroke and then they'll make some kind of miraculous recovery, because it's not real, and the writers haven't really researched what it is, and it doesn't really make for a good story if you're just going to have somebody not be very well, because they're going to get written out of the show, and all the rest of it. So there is this comment. I've had it as well. People say, "Oh gosh, you've had a stroke." Well, you'd never know.
Yeah.
And I'd say, oh, ask me how I feel.
Yeah, exactly. People, I know that the emotional internal part of the stroke is 100% something we all deal with. A brain injury. It's tough. Yeah, we'll after you'll get a copy, or you'll see all the comments. So Jazz is saying, if those stats are roughly accurate, that means around 40 million aphasia people. Well,
I mean, I assume it is because it's from the World Stroke Organization, and if they don't know what they're talking about, then there's no hope for any of us. So I assume it's. You can go to their website. I think it's worldstroke.org.com, something like that. But World Stroke Organization, they've got a fact sheet on there, and you can see all the figures. I just pulled some of the main ones off, but he's made a very good point.
Yeah, it is true. How many? It's hard to believe that we have how many strokes happen in the world. How many people? I think it's 80% of people have ischemic strokes, and the rest are. I had a hemorrhagic stroke. It's just, I think that's the accurate number. And three out of four. I don't know how many people end up with aphasia. There's 8 types of aphasia, and what type it is. It's some of these stats, like you said, and what the fact that you're doing that with the other gentleman, like offering to do the music, everything about the to do that. Okay, the short-term memory. I do. That we were just talking about the documentary.
Yeah,
that's great. Hopefully that'll bring out more of the
well,
work.
if anybody who's watching this would like to be involved, if they send me an email to contact@brainattackmusic.com, then I can send them the guide sheet. It's just a PDF file, and they were welcome to send me any video clips. It doesn't matter if it's 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, whatever.
Right.
But just what we need for the documentary is content. So we're also contacting medical professionals, stroke consultants, neuroscientists, all the rest of it, so we can get the medical facts right. But we really need people around the world to see us.
Yes.
However we are, the reality of however we are, whether we have spasticity, whether we have emotional issues, whatever, in order to make the documentary as real as we can, and to get away from what we're talking about, Jerry, which is when people say, "Well, you look quite good. You've had a stroke, have you?" Well, you never know.
Yeah.
So we're trying to break those barriers down a bit,
Yeah, I have a limp. Sometimes most of the time I wear the AFO. Oh, did you hurt your leg? Yeah, it's I used to just go right into the stroke thing. Now I don't. I just move on. Is it brain attack?
It's contact.
No.
At brainattackmusic.com.
Yeah. Okay.
If anybody wants to go to brainattackmusic.com, that's my website. They can see more about me and some music that I'm working on and bits and pieces. But that's the email to use.
Oh, look at brain. I put brain. Okay. Okay. Yeah. It's there.
I upgraded my studio computer about a year ago. And
really?
I was using a bit of software. The software I use is something called Cubase. It's basically a recording studio in a computer. It's the easiest way to think about it.
Right, okay.
And I went from Cubase version 2, which I got in 2002,
right,
to Cubase version 12, which is the latest version.
Yeah, you've got a great studio there. I mean, looking at it, I mean, you even
Yeah,
have it
well,
on your personal page. Beautiful.
it looks great. I'm still learning how the new software works because I've gone from a bit of software that's 12 years old to the latest software with a brand new computer and all the rest of it. And it's incredible, but it's so difficult as you've expressed, Jerry, when you have memory issues and troubleshooting. IT troubleshooting for me was always fairly straightforward. It freaks me out now when
Yeah,
I tried to connect with you from my studio computer and the audio and the video was blocked, and I was just like, no, I'll go back to the phone because
yeah. Neural
I
fatigue,
can't
it's that. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. That's
It becomes mentally overwhelming. That's the only way I can explain it.
right, right. Understand.
Rather than being able to go from point A to point B to point C to point D, it just kind of it all merges into one. It's just like, no, I can't. No, no.
Yeah, I
And
completely understand.
is it the same for you that the more tired you get, the worse it becomes? The more fatigued you get, the worse it becomes.
Absolutely, and also, uh, okay, contact at brainattackmusic.com. Thank you, Mike Peters. He put that in there too. So did
You're a
Kit.
legend, Mike. You're a
Yeah,
legend. Thank you.
Kit also put it in on the screen too. So thank you guys for doing that. Appreciate it. Um, yeah, about the
Getting tired.
yeah, that, and usually if you're getting tired, this has happened to me, expressive aphasia, where sometimes I can see it and it won't come out, and that's a issue with me. When I get tired, it's that kind of goes downhill too. Not as bad, but it
Yeah,
does.
it's interesting. My mental capabilities definitely get worse, and I can see the time here, 46 minutes. An hour is about my, and then I start to fall off a cliff a bit.
Yeah, I
And
understand.
but for me, it's really weird. What will happen is I'll either come up with a word that rhymes with the word that I'm looking for, must be the songwriter, I
Yeah.
don't know, or I'll come up with a word that starts with the same letter as the
Okay.
word that I'm looking for. So just as a silly example, I went to say once, well, I was talking to some other stroke survivors and said, our problem is, what I wanted to say was, our problem is we're incapacitated.
Okay.
What I actually said was, our problem is we're decapitated. Which kind of, kind of
Yeah.
the same thing. But it was obviously my brain was frantically trying to find the
Right.
word, and all it could find was something that sounded a bit like the word I was after.
Right. Right. Interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do things, and that's I have to kick that around if I can remember the rest. But it
Yeah.
sounds like a good avenue to take. If I can, I'll try that and see. But so okay, so people can contact you, brainattackmusic.com, and they can if they want to record themselves or something or several times, because that's what they'll edit. You guys will edit it, or somebody will edit it.
Jason will edit it. I don't think he's quite understood the task that he's taken on.
Yeah.
I do some pre-editing, so the stuff that gets sent to me, I'll maybe take out the bit at the beginning where somebody's sitting down, sort of, or if there's a bit where they sort of pause for quite a long period of time, I'll edit that bit out,
Okay.
and then send it through to Jason. But he's now got to look at these files and work out which sequence of events they go in. Shall I have this person talking, and then the neuroscientist, and then this person talk?
Oh,
He's got to do all of that.
yeah.
Storyboard it, I think they call it. But he's got to do all that. So I think it's going to take a while before it's done.
Yeah. It's quite a task.
But as I say, we're seriously short on content. I've been contacting people since probably October last year,
Okay.
and I think we've got about 6 or 7 actual in my hand, or should I say
We
on
need
my
to get
computer,
more.
6 or 7 video clips, which is not enough. We need
No.
really 20, 30, 40. I mean, we can't have too many, put it like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there are a lot. So I hope people, I've
Yeah.
certainly put my 2 cents in there too, but I will if I hope a lot of y'all here will do that. So Brad, I saw you
And
just
and
got
what would really be good too is to get a real spectrum of people from
yes,
different genders, different backgrounds, different cultures, etc., etc. To really, as we said earlier, there is no discrimination. It does not discriminate.
right, absolutely.
How old you are, what your background is, your social economic status, standing, and all that kind of stuff. It's just it could happen,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I don't want anyone to go through what I've gone through, and I'm sure you feel the same, Jerry.
Yeah,
And if we can get the message out there and just help people, because I think the danger is I know for me anyway, until I had bad health, i.e. the stroke, I thought I was pretty bulletproof.
yeah, invincible.
You know,
Right.
I'd drive 2 hours, I'd unload my drums, I'd set them up, we'd sound check, go and sit down, have a bite to eat, go back, play for 3 hours off and on, pack it all away again, stick it in the back of the car,
Right.
drive home, get home at 3 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
wake up at 7, go to the school I was teaching at that day, do a full day's teaching, back into the car, off for rehearsal in the evening. Didn't
Yeah.
think for 1 minute what happens if I'm seriously ill.
Yeah.
Never occurred to me at all.
Yeah. I feel the same way. Being in the job that I had, I was on the run, on the go all the time. It
You
was,
you were in you were in IT. I can't remember what it was that you were doing.
banking. I was a banker, but it was my
Oh,
job.
right.
It was an awesome job, and
Mm.
I was going. I couldn't get to work early enough. I couldn't leave late enough. I was, and maybe it was internal stress. I don't know. I never thought I had stress at all. And that I know the day. I remember the day and what happened. Holy smokes, how things changed. I thought it was over, but
Yeah.
just like you thought this is it.
But it then you become very aware of your own mortality, don't you?
Yes,
And you start looking at your life and the world in a completely different way to
yes,
the way that you looked at before. And the change is instant because you now become hyper vigilant. I remember, because it happened in bed,
right.
I dreaded. I still now do not sleep on the same side of the bed as I slept on before. I used to sleep on the left-hand side of the bed. I cannot sleep on that side of the bed anymore. So my wife and I swap sides,
Yeah,
just because of the psychology of if I sleep over there, it's going to happen again, which I
yeah,
know is rubbish. I know it's rubbish, but it's there. It's in your head.
yeah.
So for the first year, I reckon after stroke, I would go to bed every night thinking, "This is it.
Yeah,
Not going to wake up. Not going to wake up tomorrow. That bang I had in my head, it's not going to happen again. And it's going to be, that's it, game
yeah.
over."
I,
It's not
yeah,
a nice place to be. It really isn't
no,
a nice place to be. And of course, eventually you realise, actually, it hasn't happened for 18 months, Andy. So it probably isn't going to happen tonight, is it?
uh,
you know, so you eventually, get better and get better at managing yourself, managing these things.
yeah,
But
yeah,
it is a hell of a shock to the
yeah.
system,
No
both
kidding.
physically and emotionally. A hell of a
Right.
shock, which leads me on to say, there are some things perhaps that we can talk about when I get to my 10-year anniversary that might help people who
Yeah,
are 2 years into their stroke, 3 years into their stroke, or whatever.
right.
Because there's a lot of things maybe we could talk about that I think other people could benefit from. But
Absolutely.
that's probably for another show.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely we'll do that and catch up on and see how many people since today are volunteering into the documentary. I think that'd be terrific.
Yeah. I don't name and shame, so there's no embarrassment if people don't. So it's not a
Not at
problem.
all. Not at all. But it would be
Well,
good.
it's a difficult one. This is why we've done the guide for people to try and give them some ideas about what to talk about, because it's so hard to know. Well, what should I be saying?
Right. Where do I start?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, I appreciate, Andy, you being here, sharing this. This is good stuff. Talk about your wonderful stroke, like we all, and then into the documentary. And I'm looking forward to that because it raises more awareness that needs to be done.
Well, I think also too, it gets people talking,
Yeah.
because it's probably the same for you. My wife and I, there's one of our top nature TV presenters over here in the UK, a guy called Chris Packham,
Okay.
is autistic.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
he's doing an awful lot to raise awareness about autism, and he's done several TV shows on here, nothing to do with the nature stuff that he does and conservation and all that kind of stuff, but to do with autism and how people cope with autism and the different levels of autism and all the rest of it. And it gets you talking about it, right? Because my
Right.
wife and I have now had conversations about autism that we've never had before. So by doing a documentary about stroke, it will go into people's homes and people's lives who know nothing about stroke, as you didn't before you had one, as I didn't before I had one.
Crazy.
And worst case scenario is it just gets people talking about it. Best case scenario is it gets people thinking about how they're living their lives, and maybe they need to make some changes.
Yeah.
As
Advocate for
simple as
yourself.
losing some weight and getting a bit healthier or whatever.
Yeah. Absolutely. Take it for granted. I mean, looking back, thinking, wow, but who knew? I didn't know. So,
Yeah, exactly.
well, thank you again, Andy. And I look forward to doing this again, because it's all, as we know, it's very important to get that out from
Great.
all
Well,
across the world.
Thanks for having me on, and I look forward to my inbox filling up with emails.
Yes, me too. We need to stay in touch for that. I'd love to hear, and I'll throw my 2 cents on there too. And
Great. Good.
yeah, well, Barbara's asking, awesome show. Can you, let me take away my little thing here. Can you write the link down here? Yeah, Barbara, several people did that. I'll make sure that I do it again. And on the screen here, it says brainattackmusic.com. Brain Attack Music.
If people go to that website, they'll see one of the tabs is contact.
Okay.
And if they go to the contact tab, that will have the email address there.
Okay, perfect. And Barbara, when the show's over, I'll put comment in there, because I know your comment, and I'll make sure get through to you guys. So this is awesome. Okay, there it is. Thank you, Mike. You put it in there again. Barbara, can you see it right above over there? So that's awesome.
Always difficult to know which way to point, isn't it?
I know. So sad. I just, whatever. Thank you, Barbara said. Okay, good. But awesome. Any last words for now until the next time? Thank you, Yvonne.
Well, exactly. Until the next time. I look forward to it. We'll have a 10-year special or something. I don't know. You can decide.
No, definitely. It'd be great to get on that and get back into this documentary thing. Because again, like I do these shows Tuesday and Thursdays. Everybody, well, to raise awareness, on the issue that you're raising awareness on. So.
And it's fantastic, Jerry, that you do it, because it was just over a year ago that I was on first with you.
Yes.
And I've seen how much your channel has grown since then.
Yeah,
and how many more people come on and make comments and all the rest of it. And it's like there's a little community that you've developed, which is so important, not just to raise awareness, but for other people to think, oh, there's other people like me out there that I can communicate with and learn stuff from, and we all try and help each other.
Yeah, and that's what it's about, so we can all help each other and get inspired by other people,
Yeah.
And again, we don't compare ourselves to anybody else, which maybe in the beginning I did that. I don't know. But
I think it's natural. It's a human nature thing, and you hear it in conversations all the time. When somebody will say, for example, we've obviously just gone through the COVID pandemic, and you hear people say, "Oh yeah, I had COVID the other week. Oh, did you lose your sense of smell? Oh, I did. I know this." And it's oh, you didn't lose your sense of smell. Oh well, you sure you had COVID then? So I think it's natural.
Yeah,
it's just within us that we do compare. We compare about holidays, we compare about jobs, we compare about cars, we compare, But you're absolutely right. We shouldn't really compare, because I read just before we finish, I read an interesting report the other day, which was saying that we should really rename TIAs.
Yes.
they should just be strokes.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Because
don't know
they
why it's
are.
like that. Yeah.
I know, and there's this thing about, oh, I had a TIA. Oh, minor stroke, was it? Mine was major stroke.
It's a stroke.
And I really don't think you can compare, because, you know, one person may have a physical deficit, another person might be physically okay but have a really bad mental deficit,
Right.
which is more difficult to deal with. They're both awful. I
Yes.
mean, you know.
Yeah, I 100%, just to, before we go to Jerry Chapman is saying, I enjoyed what you're saying, Andy. Please come back. But I agree that a stroke, I don't know, a stroke is a stroke. A minor, they're all, when you have a stroke, to
Yeah.
me, it's a disability that happens, and it's,
Yeah.
you know, major, minor, they're strokes.
We see that the thing too is, just very briefly before we finish, Jerry, the terms major and minor are medical terms.
Right.
So when somebody says they've had a major stroke, they've been told by the consultant they've had a major stroke. That is referring to the size of the damage. It's not referring to the location of the damage.
Right.
Now, the key thing is location. So, for example, you can if you have a stroke in the brainstem, which is very small, so any stroke in the brainstem will be small. The brainstem controls the autonomic nervous system.
Yes.
Which, the simple way to think about that is everything that happens when you're asleep. That's what the autonomic nervous system does.
Right.
So the autonomic nervous system looks after your breathing, your heart rate, your blood pressure, your reflexes, swallowing, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So you can have a stroke in the brainstem, which a clinician will call minor because it's small.
Right.
But that can be devastating.
Yeah.
A brainstem stroke is absolutely devastating.
It is.
Similarly, you can have a major stroke in another part of the brain where you might have quite a lot of brain damage.
Yeah.
But that's a less crucial part of the brain than the brainstem. So the effects of it won't be as catastrophic, possibly, as a brainstem stroke, which might be classed as minor. So the terms major and minor, we non-clinicians tend to think as being, oh, mine was major, or yours was only minor. But actually they're clinical terms, and they're referring to the size of the damage. And the key, the key thing is the location of the damage.
Right. Absolutely.
That's the key thing. But anyway, I've waffled on there. I've waffled on.
Oh no, that's terrific. Again, thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it, and Andy, you as well. And we can chat here in just 1 second. But thank you guys. We'll see you next Tuesday. Take care.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Take care.